And now, everyone, to make our next presentation, please welcome actor, producer, and activist, Regina Hall.
Paul, I thought you were going to scream for me. No, my table. There he is. Thank you so much. This has been such an incredible night. Thank you to the ACLU of Southern California for inviting me. This has been an incredible evening. To everyone who was honored tonight, I am humbled by all the work that you have all done. It brings me so much pleasure to be in this room with such good-looking, Jason, well-dressed, like-minded people. It's wonderful to hear all of your opinions. You know, I love good opinions. Everyone does. I used to enjoy differences of opinions, but not so much these days. But it's an honor to be here for the ACLU. I don't know if you're like me, but you watch the news, you hear stories on the news about abuse, about terrible injustices, things that happen. The stories are outrageous and they hook you in, and no matter what you hear, according to the ACLU, or the ACLU just filed a suit, or here with us is an ACLU attorney. So thank you for being on it all the time. There is no they in ACLU. The ACLU is a union. It's in the name. The ACLU is us, everyone in this room tonight and all the members beyond. The ACLU membership has tripled in recent years. More members than ever before, but you know, they still need us. Actually, they need us more. Which brings me to my task at hand tonight, which is to collect money. No, it's not. My task is, we just saw an incredible video. So I'll start you off with this. I was and still remain a huge, huge, gigantic Don Cheadle fan. I have always been awed by his work. I met him at an event a few years ago. I think when we were, what, was it 18? About 7 years ago now, right, Don? And that shouldn't be that funny. But Don was leaving, and he said, I think he said something like, I want to work with you. And, you know, people always say that in Hollywood, but I want to thank you for putting a black woman on Wall Street. You know, when I first walked on set with Don, it's literally like getting a master class in acting. The first day he did a scene, and I was like, oh, shit. I'm scared. It was effortless because he's a craftsman. You engage with him as a person, and you meet a man, you meet an artist, and a citizen of the world. The respect that Don brings to his acting, we've seen it, you know, it's the same respect he brings to the world. He is mindful, generous, not to just his fellow actors, but to our entire crew. He thanks the crew, he thanks our background for being patient. He's passionate, he's convicted. These are traits that are genuine and very essential to Don, and this is how he relates to the world. There's not a person he does not value. Although he said some pretty mean stuff to me, but that's not about that tonight. And his compassion is global because he is smart, he thinks big. His platform extends to benefit all of humanity. And what's so interesting about Don is that he's so quiet about it. He is surprisingly humble and shy, and I often notice, like, well, I don't think he knows that he's Don Cheadle. I don't know if he knows. Like, do you know that you're Don Cheadle? I don't think he does. But then you learn the extent of his good deeds. When you know this about Don, it comes as no surprise that he made Hotel Rwanda. which I loved. Congratulations to Sophie Okinato, who got the part. Always excited for people who get parts. But he got involved in the Sudan to pay witness firsthand. Wearing that T-shirt on Saturday Night Live, as you all saw, protect trans kids, so incredible, but also incredibly Don. Not particularly loud, but extremely impactful, as he always is. Don introduced me to the Solutions Project, an effort to tackle climate change by making clean, renewable energy a reality. And this is the thing, Don balances his impact with his quiet influence. He takes on a cause and he makes sure people notice, even though he's being quietly Don Cheadle. He didn't even tell anybody on set. I would have been bragging. I would have been like, y'all know the ACLU's honoring me, right? Don didn't tell anyone. You know? I'd have had a T-shirt that said that. But not Don. He's always quiet and cool. The love that Don brings to the world is a part of him, but it's also very connected to his long-lasting and beautiful partnership with his wife, Bridget. So, Bridget, thank you for sending him to work happy every day and loved. The love that he has for his family is tremendous to him. I'm gonna tell something that I shouldn't, but they still send little X's and O's to each other. Isn't that nice? Y'all don't want to know the text I get from my ex. Hence X. So let us all, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the recipient of the ACLU Bill of Rights Award with that same amount of love that he gives, my colleague, my friend, Mr. Don Cheadle.
Oh, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Regina. I feel like, not the president now, but I feel, with the teleprompters, you always try to act like you're not reading. I always hated that. I was just read the speech, but now I'm gonna do it. So, thank you, Regina. Thank you, ACLU of Southern California, for this amazing recognition. I'm very humbled to be here. How grateful are we for the ACLU? Has it ever been more urgent to have the good work of the ACLU in our world? Yeah, we can clap again. Living in a time of abject gaslighting being passed off as reality, bullies being rewarded, an actual true crisis at our border, a rash of other injustices. Where would we be without organizations like the ACLU, championing the cause of the disenfranchised, offering wisdom, counsel, and agency to the underserved, the overlooked, the underrepresented? You are here to help create, maintain, and reinforce the bulwark against tyranny. The ACLU needs to never go away. When I was 8 years old, I was very cute. This doesn't have anything to do with the story. I just wanted to let you guys know that. Probably already guessed that. I digress. When I was in school and stood for the Pledge of Allegiance with my hand over my heart, I always said, when it came to that part, with liberty and justice for some. Now, I'm my parents' child. my parents who were educated and aware and very vocal at the dinner table when the news came on. I don't know any of you out there who have black parents. They talk to the TV. Who remembers eating together as a family? Special. Who remembers eating in front of the TV? Man, we got some old people in here. Okay, anyway, I would always hear my parents speak up when they witnessed an injustice or a clear example of someone who had been disenfranchised, someone marginalized, someone who's getting the short end of the stick. Whether or not it was intentional or not, it put a clear idea about right and wrong in front of me. It colored how I saw life around me, who was in the safety zones, who wasn't, who was protected, who had to fend for themselves, who had a voice, who didn't. So it was natural for me to say with liberty and justice for some. It was what I was very soberly aware of every day. But even in that atmosphere, the house of a budding blacktivist, that's copywritten, don't take that. That's my next t-shirt. I don't want to see anybody out there with it before I get it made. When I shared with my father my version of the Pledge of Allegiance, he nodded, was understanding. Then he quietly said, sometimes you express what you hope for the world rather than as the way it is. Speak for what you will work for. And that surprised me. I didn't really understand it at the time, but I really understand it now. Being both realistic and aspirational are not mutually exclusive. Piggybacking on you, Justin, talking about joy. Both are necessary. But justice only comes into existence through deeds. I was always told by my mother and father that if I started unjust fights, that was my ass. But I better finish every one of them that I found myself to be in justifiably. You fight the good fight. That had their full support. Stand up, say something, get involved. However, as it happens, I was also that 8-year-old kid who was practicing my signature because my autograph was going to mean something, and I thought that at 8 years old. Yeah, that was me. I had big plans. And when I realized those dreams and ambitions with hard work, good fortune, good people beside me, I was still one to see the world clearly and to speak out when I could. It was just going to be a little louder now. And that early lesson took, it didn't die. Many of the people I work with also talk about what it's like to live in the world with a spotlight. Paparazzi pursue you, cameras notice, you're living in the light. The flip side is it gives you a certain vantage point. You travel, you talk to people, you see the world. You see what's happening everywhere. There's human suffering, poverty, intolerance, inequity, injustice. People living in jeopardy and despair and darkness. We talk about how it is that sometimes we can't get out of the light and they can't get in the light, right? So what's our good fight? How can we use what we have and who we are to add our light to the sum of light? The first thing to do is to listen to the answers when you ask that question. As Too Short famously said, I bet you didn't think you were going to hear a Too Short quote tonight. But as Too Short famously said, get in where you fit in. And if you're in my position, it turns out you fit into a lot of places. Whether it's the Sudan, traveling with congressmen and women to draw attention to a genocide happening in real time, or in Texas with climate scientist Katherine Hayhoe, talking with residents of Plainview who had to figure out where their next paycheck was going to come from because the meatpacking plant that provided all of their employment had closed because the green belt had moved north. Or stumping for candidates across the country whose platforms are centered on providing greater opportunities for the many rather than the few. This celebrity, if you will, coupled with homegrown, baked-in mandate to speak up, show up, fight the good fight, it affords me quite a lot of fitting in. So you keep getting involved, you keep showing up, keep supporting, keep taking that attention, that spotlight, and turning it towards those on the front lines who have dedicated their time and energy, their lives, to promoting liberty and justice for all, organizations like the ACLU. And here I have to thank Bridget, my wife, for supporting me with love and time and keeping me grounded and humble. With the work, my kids, the family, the career, the causes, I'm going to continue to need it because the work is far from over. Climate change, reproductive rights, police abuse, protection for our LGBTQI community, affordable housing, homeless population, public education. Here comes the Equal Rights Amendment again. We got to do that again? Here comes the election. God in her heaven, the election. And they are all deserving of time and focus and energy and fight. Those of you in attendance tonight who are not officially affiliated with the ACLU, or perhaps only cursorily so, I would have you ask yourselves the same question. Where do I fit in? What do I have to offer toward the good fight? Chances are it's more than you've probably considered. Where are your spheres of influence? Is it in your church, work, school, your family? Who can you throw in with? These issues require a robust and repetitive frontal assault from an army of infitters and upstanders dedicated to seeking justice. They require people with passion, intelligence, and insight to continue to be innovative and forward-thinking. They require us to reach toward each other again and again when the good fight gets exhausting and we just want to quit and give up, which is why we are so fortunate to have the ACLU. The ACLU gives us the power to stand collectively and speak. The ACLU says that's not good enough over and over. That's not good enough. What we aspire toward, what we have been promised is liberty and justice for all. So I want to thank you all, each and every one of you, for fighting the good fight. I thank you for this honor, and I thank the ACLU. Thank you.
Fantastic.